Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Catholic OCD Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nolfi. We are back at it again with our Bible Salvation History series. We are going to go on to Moses Part 2 here. We're going to get over into the Ten Commandments, the giving of the law. Stay tuned. We got Pastor AJ in the studio with us to help us out on this little journey. So, hope you guys enjoy the show. I got my Chiefs hat on, my Chiefs.
Ooh, supporting the team, huh?
Chiefs shirt, Chiefs underwear.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, Chiefs are, yeah. You know, I don't know when anybody's going to watch this, but Chiefs are in the championship game against the Bengals again.
Man. Again, holy cow.
Yeah, I got this hat.
Ooh.
This was when they
won the Super Bowl, the big game?
Well, yes, but this was from when they beat the Titans in the championship game. I was there.
Ooh.
So
okay.
My family's very big Chiefs fans,
okay,
as you know. So Patrick Mahomes hurt his, he basically had that high ankle sprain.
Yeah, what's going on with that, man?
Yeah, he had that Saturday. Then we saw that the Bengals were going to come to Arrowhead, that we were going to have to play the Bengals again.
Okay.
The next day, like that night, my mom had a heart attack. This is
sure, right?
Yeah.
How did I not know this?
You know what? I actually was going to text you. People are listening. They're like, what the heck? Yeah, I figured I'd break it to you live.
Holy cow, man.
This just in.
Breaking.
Yeah. She texted me.
That just means if you really want that to be breaking, you have to release this episode today.
Yeah. Well, no, she texted me. What was it? Oh, no. So you know what? No, I take that back. She texted me yesterday morning. So she would have had it like Monday night then.
So, I mean, assuming she went to the hospital.
She went to the hospital, high blood pressure and all that stuff.
Any
and then
procedures or just
No,
medication?
she didn't need any stent or
Okay.
nothing like that.
Well, that's good.
No damage to the heart.
Yeah.
So she actually is home now.
Yeah.
But I was joking around. So my one cousin wrote me. He's like, hey, I'm praying for you guys. I'm like, thanks. I think Mahomes' ankle will be fine, though. And then I wrote him back. I'm like, oh, I'm guessing you're talking about my mom having a heart attack. Yeah, I can joke about it, but I joke. I talked to my mom. I'm like, Mom, I think it was Mahomes' ankle that did this.
Yeah.
And she was like, honestly, I might not be able to watch the game. And she's like, it might not be good for me to watch the game. like that coach from Major League. Remember that? He wasn't allowed to watch the game?
Yep.
So, yeah, big Chiefs fan. So, Chiefs players, if you're listening, for the sake of my mom, please win this game.
Pulling for the Chiefs.
Pulling for the Chiefs.
If I'm being honest, I'm a Steelers fan.
Right.
So I feel like I was kind of bummed that the hometown Ohio for Ohioans, Cincinnati, maybe we can say their hometown. I don't know. Because a lot of people around here were rooting for them in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, they're thugs. They are. They're a cocky team. They really are.
Why is it always a moral thing with the other football team?
No,
Why is it always a moral thing?
I went to Pittsburgh to watch the Chiefs. Mahomes' first year as a starter.
Okay,
they were the nicest people.
Okay, so they weren't thugs. It's just Cincinnati.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said that before. It just seems like a lot of times as football fans we moralize things.
Yeah. Well, the Chiefs are moral people.
Do you agree or no?
Yeah, I mean, we, look at the Chiefs.
In a
Mahomes,
lot of cases, when our football teams probably do some of the same stuff, even if it's not.
Yeah, but my point is, though, so Harrison Butker is a devout Roman Catholic, traditional Latin Mass altar server.
I don't even know who he plays for.
He's a kicker for the Chiefs.
Oh, okay.
Patrick Mahomes, I believe, is, Protestant Christian, and Andy Reid is a Mormon. So we are covered in the sense of morality in more worlds than one because of Andy Reid.
Talk about the Mormons if you want.
Yeah,
but I'll
that's
still,
why I said in more worlds than one. But, Yeah. So, anywho, back to Moses.
Yes, Moses.
Okay.
I'm thankful that your mom's okay, though, man. You know, that's...
No, it's she's young. She's, I think only 63.
Wow.
But...
my mother passed away at 63.
Really?
Ovarian cancer, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Yeah,
And she was very healthy.
And you lost your...
My dad, 3 years before that, not even 3 years before that, yeah.
Man.
Yeah. He wasn't as healthy. He was a big chain smoker. Yeah.
That...
if you're out there, don't smoke.
So you've been... So how old were you? When did you say?
So I was almost 30 when my dad died. I might have been
33 when...
About 33 when my mom died, yeah. They're 32, maybe, depending on where my birthday fell that year.
And you have no siblings, right?
No siblings, no. And I did both of their funerals
man.
As a pastor. So
that sucks,
It was challenging, but, hey, that's where the hope of the resurrection comes in, and knowing that they were believers and not perfect. I mean, certainly my parents weren't perfect people, but I know that I'll see him again, and I know that we're going to be resurrected bodily. So, how cool is that?
Plus, I'm thinking maybe you should get a hold of Netflix or something. I mean, you've heard of Orphan Annie. You could have the Orphan AJ. Orphan AJ movie.
The only thing is, it really goes against my whole MO as a conqueror. I see myself as kind of like a Viking barbarian kind of dude. You know what I mean? So I think Orphan AJ probably wouldn't. No, it would really be.
That's why I tell my kids when I die, I want them to eat cereal out of my skull. Like a true Viking warrior. You know what I mean?
Yes. I really see myself as a savage Jesus follower who's willing to go to prison, jail, or even death if necessary.
Yeah.
For the name.
Yes.
That's how I see myself.
But I won't go to Cleveland Brown Stadium ever again. That's my limits. That's my limits.
Something like that.
I've been there before.
Something like that.
Not good.
Yeah.
So, all right. We covered a lot of stuff so far.
Yeah,
your new movie, Orphan AJ.
So far,
my mom had a heart attack.
Seinfeld of podcasts.
Yes,
it's been the show about nothing other than just
Patrick Mahomes
praying for your mom,
sprained his ankle, and Andy Reid's a Mormon. Okay, with that ground covered.
Yeah,
Moses.
Okay.
Last time we left off, Moses came out of Egypt. Right, went through the Red Sea.
Yes.
I
was at the location.
Yeah, you were there.
Parted.
Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm. He comes out, and basically, as Moses goes to go up to the mountain, talk to God, Aaron and the other guys were like, got an idea. What was that idea?
Ooh, it was bad. They decided to make a golden calf, and they had an altar, and they were engaging in revelry and immorality.
Yeah.
Of all kinds. I mean, it kind of gets to what we were talking about before the show about kind of looking into the vacuum, where God doesn't.
Epicureans.
Yes, yeah. Looking into that.
Hedonism.
Staring into nothingness, and when you walk away from a knowledge of the one true God, that's kind of where you end up.
Basically, they're like, listen, Moses left. He left us. Moses isn't here anymore. God's not real.
Yeah.
We got to make a new God.
Yep.
So... we definitely see that their freedom from Egyptian slavery, they didn't have to practice the Egyptian slavery, but now they were choosing to do this even after their baptism, their baptism through the Red Sea. Now they don't have to.
That's a good point.
But they're choosing to basically, because even the golden cow would be something, this is like God already killed off, the cattle. He's already been killing off the Egyptian gods, and now they're basically reviving this. And Moses comes down, flips out, right? He wasn't happy.
Well, it shows you the heart of unbelief, I think, because that's really what any sin is rooted first and foremost in unbelief and a desire just not taking God at his word for who he is and what he does, the life that he gives. That when we were on our trip over there, we went to a location that many think is the altar of the golden calf, and that was one of the more profound moments for me, being there with my son, as you know. I was kind of looking to check it off the box, and when we were standing there on top of this pile of rocks that has all these petroglyphs on it of bulls and different things like that, it's about the size of a 2-story house, so you have to do kind of a climb to get up on top of it. But from there, you can look and you can see the blackened peak of what many think is Sinai and all of that. And of course, in the Bible, it says that there was like God. He resided in fire. He came down in a fiery smoke on the mountain, and the elders of Israel didn't even want to go all the way up into God's presence because it was a consuming fire. And so it was impactful for me. I was looking to check it off the box, and I'm standing on top of this place that many think is the altar of the golden calf. It's marked as an archaeological site by the Saudis, so they see it as something. I'm looking up at Mount Sinai in the blackened peak, and it's like they could see from there God's presence on the mountain. They could see the smoke and the fire. They just witnessed all these things that God did to the most powerful army and nation in civilization at the time, and they still engage in what they engage in and walk away from Him and do their own thing. And I think it just shows the hardened heart of unbelief. Yeah, and the depths of despair that it'll take a person to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it happened just so quickly.
Yeah.
So when we look, Moses comes back down, he flips out, right? But then Moses is going to eventually bring down the Ten Commandments, right?
Yeah.
He's going to give the law to the people. At this point, God's people really are becoming a nation that is a theocracy, really. So we went to like God's covenant with a married couple, Adam and Eve, then a family with Noah, then a tribe, really, with Abraham and his descendants. And now that God has delivered his people from Egypt, now they are going to become their own governing nation that's going to be a theocracy, which means they're governed by God, by the law of God. So in chapter 20 of Exodus, says, "Then God delivered all these commandments. I, the Lord your God, am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the place of slavery. You shall not have any gods beside me. You shall not carve idols for yourselves in the shape of anything in the sky above, or the earth below, or in the waters beneath the earth. You shall not bow down before them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, inflicting punishment for their fathers' wickedness on the children of those who hate me, down to the 3rd and 4th generation, but bestowing mercy down to the 1,000th generation on the children of those who love me and keep my commandments." Now, a difference here between, I guess, the Catholic 10 Commandments and the Protestant 10 Commandments is the Catholic 10 Commandments consider that what I just read one commandment. And the Protestants break that down into 2 commandments. Now, it has to be understood, both Protestants and Catholics believe in the whole 10 Commandments that Moses is laying down. But when you read them, it doesn't actually say like 1, blah, 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 2, blah, blah, blah. So,
in fact, in the original Hebrew text, I mean,
there's no verses.
There's no and there's no vowels either.
Right.
And there's no spaces in between the words.
So in this one, basically, in the Catholic understanding is some people like our, the theology of the year, Ray Comfort would be like, did you know Catholics changed 10 Commandments? They removed 10 Commandments. The Catholics did not remove.
That's something there.
The Catholics did not remove, don't make yourself any engraven images.
Yeah.
We didn't remove that from 10 Commandments.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there really even a difference? Because does it matter? It's still there. I mean, whether you split it here or there, it doesn't matter because it's really the heart and the thought of what that is, to not have any graven images.
Right.
I would say, too, just that my feeling is, looking at Catholicism, having been raised Catholic, even though it wouldn't be my conviction to, I guess, have some of those elements that you see in Catholicism, or even Greek Orthodoxy with the what do you call them?
Icons.
Yes, thank you.
You can't have them in your church, but icon.
I don't see a link personally between what Catholics do with statues, we'll say, for example, the one that you have on your desk there, and even iconography and idolatry. And I know that there would be many Protestants who would disagree with me on that. I wouldn't personally do that or practice in that way. Having, I guess, come out of Catholicism. You and I have talked about that at different points. It's not a secret.
I think that some
of any kind,
uneducated Catholics or Orthodox could fall into it. Just how, I mean, I've been to Protestant churches where I'm pretty sure at least 20% of the population worship the pastor.
Yes, yes. There's idolatry can take any form,
right?
You know, and I'm thinking of Paul's words too, where he talks about greed, mentions a few sins. He says, which is idolatry.
Idolatry, right?
So
I think that so a fair look at it is this. Okay, so we have two options when it comes to the idea of engraven images. We understand that there can be no image made as a god. Like this is what God's saying. Like there are no other gods.
Right.
Worship me alone. Don't create another god and bow down to this, because this is how the world operated at that time. This is how the Egyptians operated.
He's speaking to a specific context and a specific religious, cultural context, just like the rest of the Bible is. And those things are important to be understood that way.
So,
there's some principles that'll carry over, but...
Right. So the idea of engraven images, we got one of two options. Either God means you cannot make ever any image of anything.
Yeah. Which is how some people take it.
Right.
I mean, literally, they don't think there should be any images,
right,
even artistic drawings of Jesus or anything like that. You know, no movies, nothing.
So either that's what he means, or he's saying you can't create any images to worship. The reason I believe it's the second, or the reason I should say I know it's the second, where he just means you can't create any gods to worship, is because God demands his people after this. He's going to demand for them to make a serpent out of bronze, right? Yeah. He's going to demand for them to make the cherubim, the angels, over the ark.
Right.
So is God sinning? Is he commanding them to sin? Or is God just like, obviously not. He's not asking him to make anything to worship. Nobody could worship the ark. You could venerate it, honor the ark. It had a special place, but the only thing that could be worshipped is God. And I don't care what order number you put before this. We both say that, like, you can't bow down to anything. You can't make any statue and worship it.
Yeah.
Like,
I went to a Reformed Presbyterian seminary, and the Reformed Presbyterians, who I respect, incredibly in terms of their studiousness in regard to the Word, all of that stuff, their theology. I love Reformed theology. But I remember going over this thing in seminary, and people I respect. So this is no disrespect at all. I'm just kind of explaining my experience and things that were said in the classroom. And the one professor that I remember when we were covering idolatry in church history, and there was the iconoclast controversy of church history, which I'm sure you're well aware of, because I know you're a student of history. And one of the arguments against smashing of the icons, or whatever you would call them, is that many people couldn't read, and these things were ways of people being able to understand some of the stories.
Stained glass windows.
Yeah, so there's multiple reasons why people might have some of these things. Obviously, if you're not worshiping that thing like it is an idol to be worshipped, or person, or whatever it is, as though it is God himself, I don't have any issue with that. And that was what one of the professors said. But at the same time, within that same institution were people who would not use musical instruments because they saw that as a form of Judaizing, and any form of Jesus, any picture of Jesus. I actually wanted to show a video one time that it showed that big statue of Jesus in Brazil, and it just showed it as a demonstration. Showed a couple stained glass images and things like that. And what was said to me by the guy that was looking at it was, "This is idolatry." And all it was a Protestant minister talking about Jesus, and it was just showing these images.
Yeah.
These historical images of
The
famous
reason-
images of Jesus. So that was seen as idolatry. So there are people out there that
The
that
reason I would think that's
well-meaning
wrong,
Christians. They're definitely Christians. They have convictions, but
the reason I would think
They see it
that's
differently.
wrong, and I'm going to try to do this in a very fair way, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because we got another 9 commandments. But so I will say this: the idea of icons, which basically comes where we get the word like image from.
Yeah.
So this was, I think, a debated thing early on in early Christianity. Yeah. I don't think that, there are some people argue St. Luke was already making icons, at that time because he was an artist as well as a physician.
Okay.
So that's one argument.
That. Okay.
But when you basically, I believe, and somebody could check me on this, I think it's, I don't know, 787 or something like that. I think it's Nicaea 2, which is basically you get to the iconoclasm issue, this was like now there are people really flipping out saying like the church is using icons or using imagery, and some people are flipping out about it. And the church at this point basically says, no, you can use imagery and you can use icons. Part of the reason is because in the Old Testament, we have to understand the idea of God is just spirit. Yeah. He is not part of the material realm. He doesn't have material parts of him. He's not made up of matter.
Yeah.
There's the creator, and then there's his creation. They're two totally separate things. In the incarnation,
I was going to say that kind of blows that out of the water.
The incarnation basically merges the two.
Right.
Where we have like the creator takes on, basically humanity takes on creation. And that's kind of like basically the church's argument of why you can use imagery.
And I know that this is a completely different topic, but another reason why Islam, I think, is dysfunctional because it doesn't understand the way God became flesh. Islam looks at just the immaterial nature of God. So I think what you're ultimately left with there in looking at God in the wrong sense is you're left with and maybe this is just a way of looking at an improper view of whether it's, icons or whatever, but you're left with a version of God that you can't relate with in any way.
Yeah.
So I would say you can look at some of these things, and if it's the verse I'm thinking of is where Paul says, everything is
lawful.
Everything is lawful for me, but not everything is beneficial. And so I think if you can say about anything that it's beneficial, then I think it is permissible. And I think that's the word he uses, everything is permissible. You can justify anything. Is it beneficial? And
the way we just said beneficial at the same time, I was thinking of Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends?
We could be related. I don't know because I'm a quarter Italian.
Quarter matata.
So you're
means no worries.
Probably a lot more pure blooded than I am.
No, I'm a half. I'm a halfer. My wife's a fuller.
Okay.
She's a fuller. I'm a halfer. All right, number 2 then. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. For the Lord will not leave unpunished him who takes his name in vain. So when we speak of Jesus, when we speak of God, when we especially say the name of YHWH, Yahweh, it's this idea of like, listen, this is sacred. You don't just throw it in as part of your vulgar language. Yeah. And there's some people who make the argument that even, humanity having our life given to Adam through the breathing, there's some people make the argument of even our breath of inhaling and exhaling is like the Yahweh, if you've ever heard that. So don't take God's name in vain, okay? Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. So 6 days you work, you got to take off the Sabbath day, and this is for your servants at this time and everything like that. We have to remember that the Sabbath was instituted before the fall of man.
Yeah.
So the Sabbath rest should still remain.
Yeah.
It should still remain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Honor your father and mother, that you may have a long life. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male or female slave, nor his ox or ass, nor anything else that belongs to him. So what the Catholic does is they take like thou shalt not. So what the Catholic does is they have the, I'm the Lord your God, like have no other gods before me, and don't make any image that you're going to worship. Like the Catholic puts that as one commandment. The Protestant makes that as two commandments. Mm-hmm. But then the Protestant makes thou shalt not covet one commandment. And the Catholic makes thou shalt not covet your neighbor's like house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Two commandments, because they both say you shall not, you shall not.
Yeah.
What's the answer to it?
Yeah.
Don't worship any statues. Don't covet your neighbor's wife.
Love your neighbor, yeah.
Yeah.
Love God and love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor.
Yourself. I think someone else said that somewhere in the Bible.
JC. So God gives the 10 commandments. He's going to set up the 12 pillars.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to take the blood of a bull.
Yep.
And then he's going to collect it in a bull.
Oh.
And like in a basin, and God or Moses is going to take a hyssop branch. This is important. He's going to take a hyssop branch and dip that into the blood and then sprinkle it on the pillars and basically say, this is the blood of the covenant, which God has made with you. So we're going to see this with Jesus in the New Testament. We're going to see Jesus fulfills the law. He fulfills the law in Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount. He's going to fulfill this by actually making it stricter in a way. You know, you heard it say, "Thou shalt not commit adultery."
Yeah,
he's saying, "I'm telling you."
A good point. Yeah. I mean,
even
a
if
lot of people
tempted.
they think Jesus is kind of loosey goosey.
No, I think he's stricter.
Yeah, in a way, he's kind of more of a disciplinarian.
Yeah. But what Jesus does is he does it through you.
Yeah. It's a different.
He writes it. The old 10 Commandments, the old law written on stone, the new law written on your heart.
And I think it's important, too, to say that was always the intent of the law.
Right.
Was to have it done inwardly.
Right.
But the first stage of that, the first stage of Israel's history, in the way in which it was expressed in comparison to Jesus is what falls short. In comparison to the ministry of the Spirit that Paul, distinguishes between falls short and the ability to fulfill it.
In Moses' law that is going to hand down, we were just talking about the moral law, but there is a ceremonial law, very precise way to worship.
Right.
Yeah. And then there is the dietary law. Now, in this law of the ceremonial law, we're going to see a sacrificial system, right? Because now you got these moral laws. What do you do when you fall short of them? Well, now in order to re-enter into the covenant of God's people, you have to make restitution by basically participating in the sacrificial system of animals. And this is very clear in Hebrews of like, why does it have to continually, like you need fresh blood to sacrifice? Is because there is nothing in the Old Testament that it can actually remove the guilt of your sin.
Yeah.
There is no once and for all sacrifice until the New Testament. And this is why when Jesus enters into the Last Supper, when he holds up the chalice, like he's basically paraphrasing Moses, where Moses sprinkled the blood with the hyssop branch, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which God has made with you." Jesus is going to say, "Take this as the cup, the chalice of my blood, the blood of the new and everlasting covenant."
Yeah.
And then when you read the Gospel of John, this is why when Jesus finally goes to drink the wine, when he says, "I thirst," it says that they put the sponge on a hyssop branch. And they give Jesus, he drinks that fourth cup of the Seder meal. And Jesus then says, "It is finished." So Jesus fulfills the law and he fulfills the sacrificial system. That's why there is no new sacrifice. So even as Catholics, like we don't re-sacrifice Jesus at every Mass. There's a once and for all sacrifice. But what Jesus did with the sacrifice of himself, you have to understand, God in heaven, non-material. The earth, temporary, inside time, material. When Christ becomes flesh, what he does is the infinite becomes material. Christ takes on human nature. When he not only lives, preaches, dies, and not only resurrects, but the way our sins forgiven really is finalized by the ascension of Christ. Why? Christ, like none of those bulls or sheep or lambs or whatever, none of them, when they were killed, entered into eternity. What Jesus does as the resurrected sacrifice for our sins is he actually takes himself, this, now that he's actually human flesh, he actually takes it into the infinite, eternal heaven.
Yeah.
And that's why he takes himself as a sacrifice outside of time. This is why we as Christians celebrate the Lord's Supper every Sunday or more than once. You know, we don't just celebrate like, you know, the Catholics, obviously we do it daily, but like, and especially like, you know, we have to go on Sundays. Some Protestant churches do it on Sunday, some do quarterly, whatever. But the fact of the matter is like, why do we do it more than once? Because the sacrifice of Christ was taken out of time. Now the resurrected Christ sits at the right hand of the Father. The sacrifice is done, but it's ever present. Christ gets to eternally offer what he did to the Father. So this is why when any sinner comes to Christ, any sinner comes to the faith, there doesn't ever have to be another sacrifice. We get to participate in that once and for all sacrifice. And that's why he says, as often as you eat my flesh, or you know, eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim my death until I come again.
Thank the Lord, and just so grateful for all that he's done for us. I think it's more than we deserve. More than we deserve. And just wish more people understood that grace, the grace of the sacrifice that God provided. And that's what we're here for, is to tell other people about it. Make sure that they know that grace is available to you if you're in the listening audience today.
Yeah, and what do you have to do? Listen, we're not saved by law. This life is it's the effect of the salvation, not the cause of the salvation. And it's this idea of like, you come to Christ, you know, is Christ your sacrificial lamb? Is that what you have to offer to God the Father? Read the Ten Commandments. Not to sound too Lutheran, but you know, there is an aspect of the law, the Ten Commandments, which really should reflect your guilt, reflect your faults. And you could pretend like there is no law. You could pretend like there is no right and wrong, like we were talking about before the show with Nietzsche and, you know, staring to the abyss of nothingness. But honestly,
creepy Nietzsche, the
law is not meant as like just a slavery. Father Mike Schmitz, he did the Bible in the year. Now he's doing the Catechism in the year. And he was using this to reference like the dogmas of the faith, but let's look at it to reference the law. Okay. He basically said, like, picture there's a half of a football field.
Yeah.
And it sits up high, and surrounding all of it is just 200-foot drop, you know, it's cliffs on all four sides. If you put kids in there, told them they could play kickball, whatever, baseball, football, and you put a fence 10 foot high all around that, if you peeked out, you would see them kids really playing, right? Running, you know, stuff like that, kicking, screaming. Mm-hmm. If you said, oh, I want to free these kids, so you remove the fence, basically you would look at them and they would all be huddled up. Why? They'd be huddled up, afraid to move, because they know, if I go too far, if I run for a football and I go too far, I'm dead. Removing the fence didn't give them freedom. It actually took their freedom away. God's law is not meant to just because he's a mean God. Go ahead. Pretend like there's no God. There's no right and wrong. Go ahead, 10 affairs. See how it works out for you. Become a drunk. Become a cokehead. Indulge in anything you want. Become jealous of people. Envy everything. Lie. Do all of this stuff and see what happens.
Yeah, I think it really kind of showcases what it really means to know Christ, because and definitions, the difference between definitions. Freedom isn't just being able to do whatever you want. True freedom is actually knowing the one true God and Jesus Christ whom he sent in person, and having a vibrant, spirit-filled relationship with him. So, like, it's interesting because I would think a lot of people in the world would just think that Christianity or church life, that kind of stuff, takes a person's freedom away, when in reality it's, giving them true freedom. So I think, like, just those definitions are so important in terms of how we define and look at things. And true freedom. I mean, Adam and Eve had total freedom in the garden. They had one rule to follow. They couldn't follow that.
Yeah.
Freedom isn't in the absence of rules. It's found in a personal relationship. And, people who have experienced that know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Through Christ, we have freedom from sin, not freedom to sin.
Yeah.
The idea is that the handcuffs are broken. Like, we don't have to engage in this stuff. And you could be like, well, that sounds boring. Well, you know what? Go ahead. Take away Judeo-Christian morality. Do you remember what the Roman Empire was like before it got converted to Christianity? Go ahead. Go back into slavery and gladiator fights and,
Right, yeah.
What do you want to do? Legalize pedophilia, prostitution, and all? It's a jacked up thing.
I was gonna say, that sounds like what's happening today.
We're going back. we're pushing away God.
Yeah.
We're pretending like he went on the mountain. We're making the golden calf.
But we need the commandments.
Okay, guys. Well, I want to thank you guys for watching this. This is our thing on Moses. When we come back, we're going to, next time on the Salvation History, we're going to go over King David, the Davidic kingdom. So stay tuned. And if you're watching, say a little prayer for my mom. And don't be afraid to say one for my home, St. Ezekiel.
Peace.
Peace.